Picture this. There's a party happening. Good music, people laughing, drinks flowing. Everyone seems to be having the time of their life. And somewhere in that room, there's a person mentally calculating the fastest route to the exit. Not because anything bad is happening, not because anyone was rude to them, just because being in that room, surrounded by all those bodies and noise and energy, feels like wearing a coat that's 3 sizes too small. And the worst part? They can't explain it. They just know they need out. If that's ever been you, at a concert, a wedding, a crowded mall, a packed subway car, this is for you. Because there's a real psychological story behind why some people genuinely cannot stand crowds. And it goes so much deeper than just being shy or antisocial. In fact, it has almost nothing to do with either of those things. Let's start with the brain. When you walk into a crowded space, your brain doesn't see a room full of people. It sees a room full of information. Every face is a potential social cue. Every conversation is a stream of data. Every movement around you is something your nervous system has to process and decide whether it's a threat or not. For most people, the brain handles this background processing without much trouble. It filters, it sorts, it files away what isn't important. But for people who hate crowds, that filtering system works differently. Their brains don't filter as aggressively, they take in more, they process more. Every conversation in the background registers. Every shift in the room's energy gets noticed. Every stranger's expression gets read, whether they want to read it or not. Neuroscientists call this sensory processing sensitivity, and it's not a disorder. It's not even uncommon. Researchers estimate that around 15 to 20% of the population has a nervous system that is fundamentally wired to process the environment more deeply than average. More input, more processing, more output in the form of overwhelm. Crowds don't just feel louder to these people, they genuinely are louder, inside the brain. Now here's something that surprises most people when they first hear it. Hating crowds has very little to do with hating people. Most people who struggle in crowded spaces are not misanthropes. They don't dislike humanity. In fact, a lot of them are incredibly warm, deeply social, and genuinely interested in other people. They just need those people in smaller doses, in quieter settings, where they can actually be present instead of just surviving. The distinction psychologists draw is between social anxiety and crowd aversion. Social anxiety is about fear of judgment, the worry that others are watching, evaluating, finding you lacking. Crowd aversion is something different entirely. It's not about what people think of you, it's about the sheer volume of stimulation that comes with being surrounded by them. Someone with crowd aversion can give a speech in front of 500 people and feel completely fine, but put them in a packed shopping mall on a Saturday afternoon, and they'll be exhausted within 20 minutes. It's not the visibility that gets them. It's the noise, the proximity, the unpredictability, the relentless input. Let's talk about something called personal space, because crowds violate it constantly. And for some people, that violation is genuinely distressing in a way that goes beyond mild discomfort. Every human being carries an invisible boundary around their body. Anthropologist Edward Hall mapped this out decades ago and called it proxemics. There's intimate space, reserved for people you love, personal space, for friends and acquaintances, social space, for interactions with strangers, and public space, for everything else. In a crowd, all of those boundaries collapse simultaneously. Strangers are in your intimate space, people brush against you without permission, bodies press close without invitation, and your nervous system, which evolved over millions of years to treat unexpected physical proximity as a potential threat, starts sending alarm signals. For most people, those signals are quiet enough to ignore. For people with crowd aversion, those signals are loud. They don't just notice the stranger's elbow, they feel it, they track it. Their body doesn't fully relax until there's distance again. This is why crowds feel exhausting even when nothing actually goes wrong. It's not drama, it's biology. There's another layer to this that almost nobody talks about: loss of control. In a crowd, you can't fully control what happens to you. Someone bumps into you. The crowd surges in a direction you didn't choose. The noise level changes without warning. The exit gets blocked. Your movement slows down because other people's bodies are dictating your pace. For people who are wired to need a certain level of predictability, and many crowd-averse people absolutely are, this loss of autonomy isn't just annoying, it's deeply unsettling. Not because they're control freaks in the dramatic sense, but because their nervous system associates unpredictability with danger. It doesn't matter that the danger isn't real. The signal fires anyway. Psychologists have found strong links between crowd aversion and a trait called high need for cognitive closure. Basically, a preference for clear, ordered, predictable environments over chaotic, ambiguous ones. People with this trait make decisions quickly, think in structured ways, and feel genuinely uncomfortable when too many variables are in play at once. A crowd is nothing but variables. Every person is an unknown. Every movement is unpredictable. For a brain that craves structure, it's almost physically painful. Here's where it gets really interesting. A lot of people who hate crowds had early experiences that taught them on a very deep level that crowded or chaotic environments were unsafe. Maybe they got separated from a parent in a busy place as a child and experienced that raw, primal panic of being small and alone in a sea of strangers. Maybe they grew up in an unpredictable household where too much noise and too many people meant something was about to go wrong. Maybe they were in a crowd situation that turned dangerous, a stampede, a fight, an event that went sideways, and their nervous system filed that experience away as a permanent reference point. Trauma doesn't always announce itself dramatically. Sometimes it's just a quiet conclusion your brain drew when you were very young. Crowds are where bad things happen, and from that point on, your nervous system treats every crowded space as a mild emergency, even the perfectly safe ones. This is the brain being loyal, not broken. It learned a lesson. It's applying it. The problem is just that it never learned how to update the lesson when the danger was long gone. Let's also talk about the energy side of it. Because crowd-averse people often describe something that goes beyond noise or space invasion. They talk about feeling drained by crowds in a way that's almost energetic, like the crowd is pulling something out of them. And psychologically, there's actually something to this. Research in social psychology shows that being in large groups activates what's called social monitoring, a constant background process where your brain scans the people around you for emotional cues, social dynamics, and potential interpersonal signals. For highly empathetic people, this monitoring goes into overdrive in crowds. They're not just noticing the people around them, they're picking up emotional frequencies, the tension between that couple near the bar, the loneliness of the guy standing alone by the wall, the forced happiness in someone's laugh. They absorb it, all of it, without choosing to. By the time they leave the crowd, they're not just physically tired, they're emotionally full in a way that requires genuine solitude to process and release. This is why the couch at home after a crowded event isn't laziness, it's recovery. It's the nervous system finally exhaling after holding its breath for 2 hours. So what does life actually look like for someone who hates crowds? It looks like arriving early to events before the room fills up. It looks like knowing exactly where the exits are before the crowd makes them feel necessary. It looks like preferring the corner table at a restaurant, not because they're antisocial, but because having a wall at their back and a clear view of the room makes their nervous system finally settle down. It looks like saying no to things they might genuinely enjoy because the crowd required to access them doesn't feel worth it. Missing concerts of bands they love, skipping festivals that look beautiful on Instagram, avoiding markets and fairs that everyone seems to adore. And it looks like a complicated relationship with guilt, because they know on a rational level that the crowd is harmless. They see other people enjoying themselves just fine, and they can't fully explain why their body refuses to agree. So they add a layer of self-criticism on top of the overwhelm. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just relax? And that makes everything harder. Here's what I want you to hear clearly. There is nothing wrong with you. You don't hate people. You're not broken. You're not weak or dramatic or difficult. You have a nervous system that experiences the world at a higher resolution than most. You process more, feel more, absorb more. Crowds are loud for you because your brain is doing more work in them than other people's brains are. Your need for space and quiet isn't selfishness, it's maintenance. It's you knowing what your nervous system needs to function well and honoring that, even when the world is telling you to just push through it. The people who thrive in crowds aren't stronger than you. They're just running different software. And your software, the version that notices everything, feels everything, needs quiet to reset. That software has its own extraordinary strengths. Don't spend all your time wishing it was different. Learn what it needs, give it what it needs, and stop apologizing for it.